In this final video for the chapter, we're going to take a look at how we can quickly and easily distribute copies of our threaded geometry across the rim of the breastplate that we created earlier. Now, before doing that, however, we will probably want to come into our left view and then select and delete all of the original bolts here that we used as placeholder reference whilst creating the spline shape for the breastplate. Making certain, of course, that we don't delete either the threaded bolt that we have just created, nor the wing nut that we will need to place the bolt inside. In fact, once we are done deleting, let's go ahead and select the bolt, and then hit the Alt and A keys in order to engage the Align tool. Now, after clicking on the wing nut, we need to make sure that we are using the center to center option, and then click OK. After which, we can come over to the Modify panel, and so long as we are happy with the way the model is looking, we can start to collapse everything down. Of course, we could keep things parametric if preferred, but given as I am certain that we have exactly what we want, let's go ahead and collapse everything down to an editable poly object. After which, we can jump into Element Subobject mode, select the element in the viewport, press R to initiate the scale tool, and then scale things down until our screw fits nicely into the center here, making certain, of course, that we have no thread overhanging the body of the nut. Now, we can have as little or as much of the screw thread showing above the nut as we want. In fact, something that we may want to do here is squish things down a little so as to tighten up the look of the thread, and then lift the geometry up a little so as to see more of the thread sticking out, which looks pretty good to me. One last check then to make certain that everything looks correct, and we are good to go. Now, we do want to attach these two objects together so that they function as a single mesh during transforms, and so let's select the nut, come over to our command panel and click Attach, and then click in the viewport to attach the bolt. We do need to come into the Hierarchy tab, however, and make certain that the pivot point is sitting right at the base of this combined geometry. In fact, we could also come into Polygon Subobject mode at this point and delete some of the geometry that is now sitting inside the nut if we wanted to, that is. Our next step is to place these on our breastplate. So let's come into the Object Paint panel in the ribbon, where we have a couple of options that we will need to use. Firstly, we have a toggle to actually initialize the Paint Object system. And we also have a mechanism for selecting the object or objects that we will want to paint with. After opening up the Paint Objects list then, let's select our nut and bolt geometry, and once that is added to the Paint Object list, we can click on the Initialize Paint tool. After looking at our reference and seeing that we need to place one stud down at the bottom of the breastplate sweep, two in the middle, and then one on the peak of the shoulder itself, we can go ahead and paint those into place, hitting Ctrl Z or Z should we make any mistakes. Also, keeping in mind, of course, that we will need to swing around the back of the breastplate in order to do exactly the same on the other side. Once we are done, we can see that we have our studs nicely placed along the breastplate rim.